My name's Chanel Johnson. I'm the first full-time Black and Minorities Ethnic Students Officer. I'm proud to present our Black History Lecture Series, Dalian Adofo, African Spirituality, Part 2.
The United Kingdom is a safe haven for a multitude of religions and faiths that have been permitted to be practiced within its domain. They are protected by law and officially recognized, with due respect for particular sensitivities encouraged. Example, various faith practitioners can get time off work or school to celebrate sacred days in their religious calendar, such as Eid for Muslims, Diwali for Hindus, or Hanukkah for Jews, and can get paid for that time off. The Employment Equality Regulations Act of 2003, for instance, prohibits direct or indirect discrimination on the grounds of religion or belief. It even makes a direct reference to paganism, yet no mention of African spirituality. The only word in this regulation that suggests so remotely is the use of the term Ancestor Worship, a term which causes much discontent with practitioners of African indigenous faiths because it's an inaccurate way of describing these systems. The main reason for this discontent is that the term suggests that Africans do not have a conception of a supreme being or deity, if you will, that is attributed with the creation of the known universe. It thus suggests that in its absence, they instead worship their ancestors, just as a Christian would worship Jesus as an extension of the God concept, or Allah for the Muslims. And nothing could be further from the truth, as African cosmology is rich in many layers of understanding the God concept, not only in a monotheistic, but also a pantheistic framework. Later in this lecture, I will provide further clarification on this, but ancestral veneration, what it should be correctly inferred as, is about exalting the achievements of one's ancestors. Simple. And also, it's not solely what African spirituality is about. Furthermore, all communities engage in remembering their ancestors. It's not strictly an African feature. Otherwise, what are days like Remembrance Day here in the UK or Memorial Day in the United States for, if not to celebrate the lives of those who courageously gave their lives in service of their people and country? The need for clear and comprehensive identification of African cosmology under the banner of African spirituality becomes even more pertinent when we witness the ongoing attacks on its practitioners, as there is little regard for them. This prompts the need to have a single term under which the systems can exist, so that they are afforded the same privileges and rights as other systems. This is a basic expectation to have in an age that George Bush Jr., former President of the United States, has labeled the age of religious tolerance, following the September 9/11 attacks. We must move beyond the verbal rhetoric and enshrine it in law, especially as the mainstream media continues to present denigrating representations of it in the media that creates further confusion and misunderstanding amongst the masses. Currently, there is still a tendency to refer to complementary expressions of the system in a localized context. So, for example, is voodoo in Haiti, in the Caribbean, and its birthplace Benin, West Africa, or it's Ifa in Nigeria, West Africa, and it's known as Santeria in Cuba or candomblé in Brazil. This is one of the many misunderstandings that blights African spirituality, as is perceived as disparate individual systems, even though the philosophies underlying them are informed by the same principles. Case in point, look at the central pillars or tenets or ideas of Christianity and Islam. In Christianity, there are Roman Catholics, Presbyterians, Pentecostals, Jehovah Witnesses, and the like. Similarly, in Islam, there are Sunnis, there are Shiites, Sufis, and the list goes on. These various sects are labeled under the same banner because they share some of the ideas in an overarching ideology. They don't all agree on the same areas of faith, practices, or rituals, but because there is a core of shared ideas, they get one umbrella label. So why not African spirituality? It's well overdue for this label to be placed in the League of World Religion. This will go a long way, not only to encourage accountability for practitioners and shamanic priests alike, but also brings it out from under the shadows, so to speak, where it has been confined due to centuries of attacks by other religions. So then, what are some of the features and principles that function as pillars of African faith systems that is consistent across communities and geography? What's remarkable is that we find the same principles in use on the continent and in the diasporic communities in the Caribbean and Americas, even though there has been separation between these sets of African peoples for centuries. It has also remained resilient across millennia, evidenced in use even amongst the Asian Kemethians, that is, those Africans who lived in the land we now call Egypt. The first pillar, the acknowledgement of a single creator in a monotheistic context. Contrary to popular misunderstandings, African spirituality is not polytheistic in nature, because at the zenith is always a single supreme entity. This entity or creator is what is responsible for all that is tangible and visible in this reality. The notions associated with this creator or being include a provider, that is one who cares for and sustains its creations. The protector, one who looks after people's needs. The first ancestor, implying that the creator is the origin of the people, the oldest ever elder, if you will, and as such, worthy of the highest respect. The omnipresence of the African creator is evidenced in the diversity of nature that we find here on earth. And in this context, is often perceived as the feminine aspect to the creator. That is, the mother who nourishes and nurtures her children. It is also from nature that we get the many different expressions of God, understood across all African communities as the forces of nature or the spirits within nature, and usually expressed as mountains, rivers, stones, animals, and trees. It is the existence of these lesser deities or gods, if you will, that has led to the misunderstanding of African faiths being misconstrued as polytheistic. Also, because it is these deities that people mainly pray to. The assumption has been that the concept of a god is non-existent. Rather, this is done because the understanding is that these deities act as intermediaries between God, as the highest authority, and mankind. We see the same hierarchical structures in African societies when the king's audience is sought in court. As the king symbolizes God in the living flesh, there is never a direct approach. Visitors rather speak through the linguist or other officials who then relay the communications back and forth. The deities are abundant and varied across communities and known by many terms of reference based on the language of the community. Examples are the Orishas within the Yoruba system, or the Abosom in the Akan, or we find the Loas in Haiti. These deities can also include exemplary ancestors who have passed on and due to their great deeds get elevated to that level of reverence. It's a similar concept to the way Catholics canonize their popes. So, the second pillar we have is the existence of deities with direct contact with humanity that can provide assistance or wreak havoc based on the request. These energies are solicited via offerings of animals, foodstuffs, or liquids in ritual. They also have custodians that can bring their messages forth, and they are known as the traditional priest or shaman. Under colonial rule, they were misrepresented with the oxymoron of witch doctors. A third pillar is the understanding of the interplay between the spirit realm and the physical one. The spirit realm is conceived of as the balance to the physical realm, and what occurs in that realm can be reflected in our daily lives. It's not only the abode of spirits, but also past ancestors, as well as our own human spirits can visit this realm, usually only at night and in dreams. This is why dream interpretations are taken so seriously in African societies, because what occurs in them can have a bearing in our daily lives. It can be a sign of imminent danger or good news yet to transpire. It provides guidance on what we can do to prepare for any such eventuality and how to remedy them. This interplay between the spirit and physical realms is further symbolized in the cycles of day and night. So the day is for human agency, and it's at night that the spirits are active. This symbiotic cycle is most clearly expressed in the cosmograph of the Bakongo peoples of Central Africa. A fourth pillar is that of ancestral reverence, the homage and respect held for members of the family and community who do great works and are remembered for it. They are the members of the community who have lived morally upright and ethical lives that can serve as an inspiration for others. In their passing, they are held in positions of reverence, and as such keeps their spirits and memory alive. Altars and shrines are often set up in communities to commemorate their memories. This is to acknowledge continuity of the ancestral lineage as well as maintain links with the individual, as the understanding is that the assistance can also be sought from across the spirit realm. Their death is not their final end, because their life force is forever, and thus always available to be communicated with. Imploring the help of the ancestors is always via prayers and rituals, either at individual family altars or communally via traditional ceremonies or festivals. Libation as a prayer form is one such consistent method of communicating to departed ancestors and spirits in general, whereby a liquid is poured on the ground with words spoken to express the requests. The liquid is first poured before the request as a sign of respect, and it represents a reciprocity of favors that in giving, one can also expect to receive. Libation in itself as a prayer form can also constitute a fifth pillar within African faith systems. We have enough consistencies within African faith systems for it to warrant a place in the League of World Religions. It does not exhibit such disparity that we can continue to hold the position that there is no such thing as African spirituality. As these frameworks that exist are evident in the systems we commonly know as Vodou, Ifa, Santeria, Candomblé, and the like. They are but varied expressions of the same concepts and principles. And to continue pretending that they are so different in nature goes against every assertion we make of equal rights and justice for all.